And who says that religion and spiritualism or attending church programs, spending time to pray are the reason why some nations and their people are poor? Who is saying that? That is not what we see in the world. That religion and spiritualism, attending church programs, and praying are the reasons why some people, for example, in the continent of Africa, some part of Asia, Philippines, and others in South America, in Caribbean, and even those living among Europeans and Americans are poor because of their religious mindsets, spiritualism, because they always attending church programs and praying. Who's still telling you that is the reason why people are poor and marginalized and deprived? We're going to look at what actually is making people poor, deprived, and marginalized. If you say religion, spiritualism, and attending church programs and prayers are the reason why people are poor, then what about, have you considered Arabs and the Jews? They are more spiritualists, they are more religious, they are always attending to church programs, they are religious programs, and praying more than any one of us who said you believe in Christ or whatnot. The Jews and the Arabs, or who are Muslims, typically Muslims, they pray more than you. They pray 5 times a day. They are always in the mosque. They are very religious and spiritualists. The Jews and the Muslims, they are mainly from the Arab nations. Muslims, the Arab nations. The Buddhists, who are the Chinese, they are so spiritualist and religious, attending to their religious programs and prayers, often than even Christian believers. The Japanese are Shitus. They are very religious, spiritualists. They always attend to their religious sacrifices and prayers. So we look at the Indians, who are Hindus. If you come to Europe here, they have so many churches than any places in Europe, in Germany. So who is saying that the problem of poverty, deprivation, is because the people are lazy, they are very religious, they are very spiritualists, they are practicing spiritualism, they're always in church rooms praying. That's why they are poor. That's not, that thing people are saying is just they're confusing even people more, because that's not the reason why. Let's just look at why people are poor. And I'm talking about Christians, because when you take for the continent of Africa, you have 2 main religions, Christianity and Islam. When you go to South America, we have Christianity. South America, Central America, Caribbean, Philippines, we have Muslims and Christian worships. And well, when you go to places like China, it's also majority Buddhists, Shitus in Japan, and Hindus in India. We go to Emirates, Dubai, they are typical Muslims, very religious, practicing spiritualism. They always practicing religious activities and always praying. But Dubai is very rich. Singapore, they are rich. Malaysia, they're all religious. So the basic line here is not religion, spiritualism, or religious activities and prayers. No. But what is making people in South America, some part in Asia, Philippines, and Africa, Caribbean, and even in Europe and in North America, people follow Christ so poor? What is the problem? What's the problem? The problem we have seen is not because they are religious or spiritualists or practicing spiritualism, or the always engage in religious activities or prayers. That's not the problems. The problem has got to do with deception, a form of foolishness that is seen among people who are practicing Christianity in the continent of Africa. in South America, Central America, Caribbeans, in places of Asia, such as Philippines and Singapore and other places. Why these people are struggling, why their system is not working, their system is not, it's because of foolishness. Some form of doctrines that have been introduced to them, which deprive them, which curses them. These doctrines make them poor, make them not think properly, and make them behave like children and very foolish. When Paul came into the church and saw them doing that, he said, "Oh, foolish Galatians, who have bewitched you, that should not bear the truth. Do you receive the Spirit of God through the works of the law by hearing faith? Are you so foolish? For as many as of these doctrines are under curse, and nobody can be justified by God through them." Because you need to be justified by God through faith. But these things are not faith. Galatians chapter 3, 1 to 3, 10 to 12. Galatians chapter 3, verse 1 to 3, verse 10 to 12. Now, what are the doctrines? What's Paul saying? They are very foolish and bewitched. It's because they come to God and they are the only people who say that when you pay money to God, then God will give you money. So we have people leading them who are teaching them these kind of foolish things. That today even Jews don't do that. Jews who were introduced to in their book, in the Jewish Bible, in the Hebrew Bible, is where you find tithes, first fruits, sacrifices mentioned there. But today, that is not what they practice. Today, when their eyes were open, they don't practice that again. That was then. Today, nowhere, you don't go to any synagogue in the world and hear Jews mention tithes and first fruit and those sacrifices. No, it's not done. It is Christians who are not even giving those things who have been taught that unless you give tithe to God, unless you give first fruit, unless you are sacrificing to God, you cannot prosper. That is nonsense, and that makes no sense. Because these were done before Christ. After Christ, even the Jews are not practicing again. Even though they don't believe in Christ, they know that those times have passed. This kind of fresh doctrines is what is making them poor. Not because they are religious and spiritualists and they are always engaged in religious activities or praying. That should even rather encourage them. Because religion and spiritualism, religious activities and prayers are human activities. Nobody can change it. Even Satan himself practices it. So it is part of a human activity. Even though Christianity is not so religious like that, Christianity is spiritualism, practice spiritualism, the Spirit of God. Christians are engaged with the Spirit of God. They are engaged in activities of the Spirit. Christians are engaged in prayers. So you can't separate this from Christianity, but that's not the reason why Christians are poor in the world. The reason is the foolishness and people who are depriving them. That a man will rise up and say, "I have the oracles of God, I have the power of God. I'm your prophets, I am your apostle." And telling people that God said, "Give me money." Paul says, God says, "Sow seed." It's never done in Islam, never done in Judaism, never done in Buddhism, never done in Hinduism, never done in Shintoism, never done in atheism. It's only Christians that Satan has targeted them to deceive them. As Apostle Paul said in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, from verse 13 to 15, the Satan has become an angel of light and set apostles in the churches, not in Islam, not in Buddhism, not in Hinduism, but in the churches of Christ. Or unless the people's eyes are open, they will continue to be deprived. That you take countries like Philippines and Nigeria in Africa, Philippines in Asia, take Brazil in South America, look at the Caribbean nations. or even come to Europe or go to United States, you have a huge Christian populations there. And all of them are poor. Some few people who go all over the world in the name of miracle working. They are the pastors that were exalted. You can mention the names. And they are very rich. Why? Because they have tamed all the followers to give them money. You don't see that in Islam. Tell me, in the whole world, you see Islamic leaders who have got names teaching such things. Buddhist leaders, Shiite leaders, Jewish leaders behaving like this. That's why Christians are poor in the whole world. This deception is killing them. If you are being taught that unless you pay tithe to God, first fruit to God, unless you sacrifice unto God, you are not going to prosper. Unless you obey 10 commandments, you are not going to be safe. Should be destroyed. Because that's exactly what Jesus said to the scribes and Pharisees. Matthew chapter 23, verse 15. He said, you compass sea and land and make one your proselytes. When you make them, you make them twofold the children of hell than yourself. Verse 23, Matthew 23. You pay tithe of everything. Everything. You have even omitted the weightier matter of the law. That is the practice of scribes and Pharisees, no Christianity. So when these practices are found, Philippians control verse 27, that Matthew 23, he said they want to polish themselves by 10 commandments, but inside they are like rotten bones, caskets. And this is the practice, what is being taught to the churches. That is why they are like that. They are twice children of hell than their teachers. That's what have been created in Christianity. So it is not a matter of you being religious, practicing religious things and spiritualism and prayers that are making you poor. It's that foolishness, that fresh doctrine. Unless it's removed from the church and you remove yourself from it, there's no way you can change. And you become horribly terrible and be destroyed. That is the truth. Stay tuned and stay blessed.